So, if you recognize this island church and this beautiful castle on the cliff here, then you'll know that I'm at Lake Bled once again. But for a change, I'm on a different side of Lake Bled. Now this is the main side of Lake Bled where all of the hotels, coffee shops and everything are. But most of the time, photographically, the best place is over the other side, so the western side, known as Zaka actually. And these are the shots that you get with the mountains behind, the Lake Alps actually. And there's the boardwalk over there where you can shoot from. There's Malosojnica and Ojstrica. I've shown you all of that in my previous videos. And I'll put a link up to a playlist here with all of my videos of Bled so you can see that. But this time I decided to come this side because it's less photographed. Now, obviously over there the views are much more beautiful. You get the island church and the castle and all the mountains behind, and that's great. But from this point of view, although you don't get all the Lake Alps, from here you do actually get the castle itself and a little bit of the Julian Alps there when it's clear enough. So this is probably a viewpoint that's often overlooked. So this morning I decided to come and try this out. Now, unfortunately, there's a bit more cloud than the weather actually forecast. There was a lot of rain and some storms that blew through last night, and the forecast said that it would clear away. And according to the Clear Outside app, it was supposed to be about 40% cloud cover over Bled. Well, I think it was wrong. There's still a chance that this might break up, but it's getting close to sunrise now, and I'm losing hope, quite frankly. But still, there's the opportunity for a few blue hour shots. The church, the castle, it's lit. Now the one problem you get when the castle is lit is you get this long trail of light reflected from the cliffside, because the cliffside is lit, and then that light trail is reflected in the water, so it kind of looks ugly. So you can't really include much of the water when this is lit. So for that reason, I can show you on the screen here. Oh, no, it's too dark. If I can show you maybe on the screen here. But for that reason, you can't really go wide, because then any shot that you take includes that ugly trail of light. So it's not very nice. So for that reason, I tend to go in close, and that way I get the castle and the Julian Alps, that little bit of the Julian Alps there in the shot. So you see, if we pull back, although it's quite dark, but you can see if we pull back that you get that nasty light trail reflected in the water. Now it's not so vivid now because it's starting to get lighter. But when I got here earlier, it was much more vivid and much brighter, so it looks ugly. So for that reason, I tend to come in close and frame up my picture with just the church, the castle, sorry, and the cliffside, and that little bit of the Julian Alps there on the left. So this is a nice composition. You can move over here and also get the island church. So you can get both. Now you don't get the mountains behind it, but you do get those lovely hills behind it. So it's something a little bit different also. So it's nice to be able to swing between the two. Now, the clouds themselves are quite nice. But really, I was hoping to get some lovely sunrise colours over this. Now, I had to be down here, unfortunately. The best place is actually up there. I'll show you in a minute on the video. So this is the viewpoint I was telling you about. It's unfortunately the terrace of the cafe here, and as sunrise is 5:20 in the morning, they're not open and you can't get onto it. But from that slightly more elevated view, makes a world of a difference when looking across to here, because you're slightly higher up. And I was here a few years ago now, actually, having a coffee in there, and it had been raining all day. We'd been walking around the lake, and right around sunset everything started to break up. So I quickly ran to my car and got my camera. We came back, we had a coffee here, and then I came out onto the terrace here, and the view, that little bit of elevation was just perfect. You got the perfect view right the way across. And from down here it's not quite so good because I'm having to look upwards at everything. So up there was much better, and I'll show you some of the pictures I shot of that sunset. It was fantastic. I've got 3 stops soft grad on here to try to pull down that sky a bit. So to get a longer exposure, I'm going to take my ISO down to 1000 and my aperture up to f16, so I can get a 30-second exposure. Now the light meters at nominal is flashing, so that means that at f16 ISO 200, ISO 100, it needs more exposure. So if I put that up to ISO 200, now it's telling me that I can get 30 seconds at f16 ISO 200. But I know that's going to be a bit too bright, so I want to darken down those clouds a bit. I want to underexpose it a touch so I can get more detail and texture in those clouds. So I'm going to take it down, -1 exposure compensation. Now it's given me 13 seconds. So I can now take that down to ISO 100, and that will give me 25 seconds. I'm going to do a 25-second exposure here. So if I'm not going to get any sunrise colours, then at least I can try to get some long exposures on the clouds. The thing with landscape photography is when you don't get what you want, you have to work with what you have. There you go. I'll put that up there now. It's nothing spectacular. So that's about 10 minutes away from sunrise. As you can see, there's no colour. But it's good to show you sometimes that it doesn't always work out the way you want it. In one of my last videos I got the most fantastic sunrise ever. But this time I got nothing. So sometimes you fail. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to. And it's a good example really, because often when you get these really great pictures, people think, wow, yeah, every time he goes out he gets great pictures. It's not true. Quite often, you know, you have to go out all the time and you never know what's going to happen. You know, the forecast said this, and yes, it's wrong, but you know, I didn't know that. I'm not going to know that. And you just have to come out and see and take your chances. You have to make really a decision and look at the forecast, look at the conditions and decide, is it going to be worth it? Is there a possibility of good conditions? And am I willing to head on out and take that chance? This morning I was, and it hasn't worked out the way I wanted. Now I could have gone round the other side, but quite frankly I can see from here that even the Alps are obscured by the cloud. The cloud is too thick. The forecast was completely wrong. So it hasn't broken up and cleared away how I'd hoped it would. I was kind of hoping around sunrise that all of this would break up and that sun would break through and just light up all this broken cloud and all this scene here. And it hasn't happened the way I hoped it would. Now this is a 4-stop soft grad I'm putting in here. I really want to darken down those skies. Now I've put my exposure back up my exposure compensation back to the 0 point now, because I want to get longer exposures, and now it's getting brighter. I'm starting to not be able to get such long exposures, and by doing the -1 I've actually increased the exposure time. So I know that at least even if it's a little bit too bright, the sky, even with the grad on, that I can still pull back the highlights and the details in post-processing. The most important thing is that your highlights are not blown, and they're not here. See, I still have plenty, even a little bit of a gap on the left, so it's even slightly underexposed. So all of the highlight detail has been captured in this shot. So when I go into post-processing, I will be able to pull back a lot of that detail and texture in the sky. Now, getting a nice little bit of light or texture on the water itself, so I decided to turn this way and focus on that church, but I've back to include a lot more sky now. So if you can see on the video here how I've pulled back to get a lot more of that sky. There's some nice sky there, especially when you darken it down a bit. So I think I'm going to switch now to the hard grad, because there's a harder transition between the sky itself and those mountain tops. So in this case I think I can put a hard grad on. I've got a 4-stop hard grad here, so let's give this one a go. It might actually be a bit too much. Yep, a little bit of overkill. So let's put the 3-stop on instead. Hopefully here you can see the effect that the grad has when we put it on. There. That's worked out much better. See, the previous one was too extreme. I'll put the 2 up there so you can see how the 4-stop was too much and how the 3-stop was a much better improvement. I'd like to go in close, but closer to those, the sky is not that inspiring. If you pull back, there's much more texture and detail in the clouds higher up. Now I'm down to ISO 100 f16, and that's the slowest shutter speed I can get, even with my grad on, and I've got the polarizer on there as well. It's given me 13 seconds. I'd like to get longer. So the only way to do that is to put an ND filter, neutral density filter on. Now I only have a 6-stop screw-in one, a Hoyer one. And the problem is that it means I've got to take all this off. Now I do have a 10-stop square case filter coming, but unfortunately it's not here yet, so I'll have to use the screw-in one for now. It's a bit of a pain to use the screw-in one, because it means that I've got to unscrew this one first, screw this on, and now one problem with this, of course, is that when I want to take it off I've got to do all this again. So that's why I bought the square one that will slot in with my ND filters, because that will be easier to remove between shots, because sometimes you want to use it for one shot and then you might want to take it off and not use it for the next shot. So it's much easier to just slide it in and out. Everything is very dark now. I've put my ND filter on, so I'm going to dial up my ISO so I can see what I'm doing. I can dial down my aperture, and the one problem you've got when you put the ND filter on is the camera finds it hard to focus. one seems to have found the focus okay, so I'm going to lock that now. Manual focus. And now I'm going to go to F11 ISO 200. So now obviously I need much more than 30 seconds, it's not enough. So if I dial my ISO up to 800, up to 1000, up to 1250, now it's not flashing. And if that works, then I'm going to try to calculate a longer exposure. Let's see how that looked. So that worked out about right. Now if I know that I can get 30 seconds f11 at 1 to 250, if I half my ISO from 1250 down to 640, I know that will give me 60 seconds. And if I take it down again to half of 640, which will be 320, that can give me 2 minutes. I'm going to get my stopwatch and I'm going to time it to a 2-minute exposure. Oh, coming up to 2 minutes now. And there's my photo. I'll stick it up there now. Now even at 2 minutes really, there's not that much movement, but it has added some drama to the sky, that's for sure. So there you go. Doesn't always work out the way that you plan for and the way that you hope for, of course. But when you get what you get, you have to work with what you get. So I didn't get the colors that I wanted. I was hoping that this would all break up, especially that it would break up where the sun rose somewhere over there, but the cloud is still super thick over there. So it didn't break through. It didn't light any of this cloud that I hoped it would do. But there you go. In one of my previous videos, I got the most spectacular sunrise ever. But there you go. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But as I just showed you, you can always work with what you get and make the best of what you get. So in this case, although we didn't get the colors, I got a lot of cloud, and I tried to work with some long exposure techniques to come out with a few reasonably good photos. I wouldn't say they're spectacular, but I suppose as professional photographers, we always want to get spectacular photos, and we forget sometimes that it's not always about that. It's about the moment, and not every photo has to be spectacular, but we can always get good photos, nice photos, and that's what it's all about. So I've moved over to here, where all of these Pletner boats are. Now Pletner boats are unique to Bled, actually. Each Pletner boat owner carves and crafts and builds his own boat, and it's a tradition that has been passed down from father to son. And one of the things that you can do, obviously, in Lake Bled is take a ride on one of these Pletner boats out to the island. And quite often they're parked, well, they're moored, I should say, in various places around the lake, but this is one of the areas where a lot of them are moored. And just as I was packing up, I came over here for a look, and I found a really nice composition. And I'm going to show you that composition now. So here we are. I found a composition with a few of these boats and with the island church centralized right in the middle. And some nice cloud drifted over those hills a bit. So it made for a really nice composition. And so, again, I put my 6-stop neutral density filter on and did a couple of 1-minute exposures and got some really nice shots. I'll show you now. So there you have it, a perfect end to an imperfect morning. I found a nice spot here and got some lovely kind of almost like fine art images, and I think this shot I've got here is going to make a really nice fine art print. So in part 2 of this video we'll go into the computer and we'll process this photo. Okay, so thanks for watching this one. Stay tuned for part 2, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and if you're new to my channel, please subscribe and check out some of my other videos. Okay, so catch you later, see you in part 2.